Ninja and Flannel. I recently noticed more and more trends of people asking the same questions regarding suppressors. You know, where suppressor, how suppressor, which suppressor, but I'll do you one better. Why suppressor? If you think the NFA is complete nonsense and a violation of our rights, make sure you like this video and drop a comment of what the best date to abolish it would be. On that same note, the Second Amendment Foundation is an awesome gun rights group that I've personally joined. This is not a paid ad, by the way, and I put a link in the description where you can join them as well. Really good dudes over there, and they support us, so I believe we should support them. So do you need a suppressor, and why? Well, first off, let's talk about the purpose of a suppressor. Now, most of the time, you're not gonna get that real, James Bond effect like you saw in the beginning, although it is possible, as you can see. Now, before we get into that later on, I want to talk about the main purpose and function of a suppressor. Side note, little shameless plug here, on my Rally Defense AK, which is working well, I have my RR Weaponry Ventus can right here. Now, these are very unique because they have very high-end performance, but they're not all that expensive. They're not cheap, but they're not that expensive. These are a modified version of 3D printed Inconel. They run to like 1800 degrees, stuff like that. Zero back pressure, which is cool, and it is one of the quietest cans I've ever shot. So check these out. Not really part of the video, that was just free. So the main thing a suppressor does, obviously, is make your shot a bit quieter. Now, it's a bit more complex than that, I would say, and what I would boil it down to is it does two things. It reduces sound signature, and it reduces flash signature. Now, flash signature is pretty straightforward. It reduces the amount of flash. Now, why this is important is because if you're shooting at night and you fire a shot and you don't have good flash suppression, you have this big camera flash out the front of your muzzle right here, which gives it away exactly where you are. The other side where it's really important and the most essential is if you're shooting with nods, night vision, and stuff like that, it can potentially be making your night vision auto gate, which is to darken and lighten every time you fire a shot, which is a royal pain. So flash suppression is really just about suppressing the flash. Now, sound signature is a little more involved than the flash reduction. So the sound itself is not going to be super quiet if you have a supersonic round. We'll talk about subsonics later in the video. When you're supersonic, you're breaking the sound barrier, if you don't already know this, and it's going to cause a crack even if your shot is quiet. So you could still hear the shot from a decent distance away. Now, what it's going to do for you is it actually makes the sound a little harder to pinpoint where it's at. I'm not exactly sure why, and you can call me on that if I'm wrong. But it seems like when you fire with the suppressor, it's a little hard to locate where it's actually happening. It might have something to do with the way the projectile is breaking the sound barrier and where the projectile is at. Not really sure, but it's really hard to locate where it's coming from, in my opinion. The other side that is for sure is that since it is making your shot much quieter overall, you're going to have a smaller area effect of where your shot can actually be heard from. So although 10 feet away, you might still be hearing that shot where it seems a little underwhelming. When you get a bit further away, it gets quieter much faster. So the main things you should be looking at are sound suppression and flash suppression, and real G's don't chase decibels. So if you're going for a rifle in particular, you're mainly looking at flash suppression. So the main purpose of suppressors is as we have just discussed. And the important thing to always remember is the saying, real G's don't chase decibels. That's what you need to remember with rifle cans. But if you are going to chase decibels, you should at least do it the right way. And the right way is with the correct caliber and subsonic ammunition. So do 5 rounds suppressed with this guy, just to see the difference with 45B and subs. Now, as we discussed before, a supersonic round is breaking the sound barrier, causing an additional crack besides the shot, which makes it very difficult to suppress. So subsonic ammo is just loaded below the sound barrier, which is pretty obvious, and it doesn't have that crack, so it can be much quieter. Now, you could make anything subsonic, but if certain things won't be very effective. If you make a 223 subsonic, you basically have a 22. So you want to pick a good capable cartridge to start with. So in order, my favorite rounds to suppress are 9mm, 300 blackout, 45 ACP, and then 7.62 by 39. Those are my favorites. So like right here, this is my Strylog SP45A3. This is a roller delay 45. Now most 45 is innately subsonic right from factory, just the nature of the round. And this suppresses very nice. The other one is 300 blackout right here. Now, this is something very important to remember. If you shoot 300 blackout and you own a 5.56, I would tape some mags and only ever use those for 300 blackout, because if it ends up in your 5.56, it will grenade your upper, just so you know. But aside from all that doom and gloom, 300 blackout is fantastic to suppress. Pretty well known, but it's one of the best ones. You get like 220 grain subsonics, and they are way hearing safe. Now I'm going to give you a little cheat code, and that is that for 9mm, you don't need to buy subsonic ammo. If you buy some Reman that's 147 grain, it will innately be subsonic, and it'll be just as cheap as any other ammo and runs really nice. Moving on to 300 blackout, like I said before, 220 grain subsonics are great. 7.62 you want to go with like a 196 grain. Those are the ones I usually shoot. And then 45, you're always good to go. If you're suppressing 22 long rifle, those you want to find is CCI makes a subsonic semi, it's called, where it'll still has enough juice to cycle in your semi-autos, but it's still below the sound barrier. So those are, if you can save those in your brain, I'll try to put some links in the description for them. That'll give you a little shortcut of how to find the easiest subsonic ammo. Now, going this route with subsonics and stuff like that is going to be the best way to get that Hollywood James Bond effect, like you saw with this guy right here. And it's really fun. And if you're in PCCs, it's pretty effective. You don't have to really sacrifice any velocity or anything like that with the PCC, and that's usually the way to go. Side note, put these back on before I blast. These are actually my block ballistic glasses. These are actually pretty sweet. I'll have a link in the description where you can find these guys. They also have a sealing gasket if you're an airsofter, so keep that in mind. I love these so far. Yeah, here's that 007 effect that we all know, I reckon. Yeah, we all know and love. Now back to the original question that we posed for this video. Do you need a suppressor, and why? Well, we talked about the why, but still, do you need one? Well, here's how I would put it. If your budget's a little bit tighter, which a lot of us do have tight budgets, if your budget's a little bit tighter and you don't plan to shoot night vision or anything like that, and you're gonna have to sacrifice other gear to get one, don't get a suppressor. Get a flash hider on your rifle, put that stuff into more essential gear, good optics, a sidearm, stuff like that. If you can afford it, then by all means, get yourself a can. It shoots much smoother. It makes the whole overall shooting experience way better. And in some cases, it improves accuracy. Don't quote me on that, but I have experienced that. And then if you're gonna shoot night vision, you definitely need one. I would say it's pretty much essential to go with your nods. So thank you very much for watching this video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit like, comment, and subscribe to fight that commie algorithm back. And you'll see more videos like this coming soon. Farewell.